Hello everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the Get Smart Using Logic to Streamline Conga Composer webinar. This webinar is a part of our ongoing webinar series. This webinar is intended to help you learn ways to add intelligence to your Composer solutions and to automate your template selections, streamline and merge process, and create documents as easily as possible. I'm Teresa Bowerly, and I'll be the moderator for this session. Before we get started, let's do a little housekeeping. The entire webinar is slated to last for about 30 to 40 minutes, including 5 minutes for Q&A at the end. We do have a lot of registrants, so everyone's phones will be on mute. If you do have questions, please submit them online. We may not get to all of your questions, but we'll answer as many as we can during the session. Any questions that we do not get to during the FAQ section, we'll post to our knowledge base. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll make the recording available within a few days on our YouTube channel, as well as in our knowledge base. So let's get started. I'm pleased to introduce Robert Boyd. Rob?
Thanks, Teresa, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And thanks very much for making the time and for taking some time out of your day to talk about using logic to streamline a Composer solution. So I'm Robert Boyd. A little bit about me. I'm a product and partner marketing specialist here at Conga. I've been with Conga for almost 3 years, and I'm also a certified Salesforce Advanced Administrator. So there's 3 main topics that I really want to dig into today. So let's go through a quick agenda. First topic is going to be using some formulas for predefined glory, as I like to call it. But really, it's using formulas to automate your template selection and add some logic to that whole process. The second topic we're going to cover is going to be about using a feature we have called background mode. And some of you who are Composer users might be familiar with that feature and what it does. But I'm going to show you how to use that feature and kind of take it to the next level with some optional switches where you can control some settings of Composer but still use background mode to bypass the user interface and streamline your solution. Third topic we'll dig into is going to be about a pair of parameters we use to enable or disable Conga Composer solutions in general, the buttons. And those parameters are called DC and EC. And really they're logical security switches. DC stands for disable Conga, EC for enable Conga. And we'll show you a couple ways to sort of drive some logic into those parameters to act as validation rules later. And then as Teresa mentioned, we'll follow up with some Q&A in case you have any questions. All right, so a quick little footnote that this whole webinar is kind of geared towards the intermediate to advanced Composer user. It's going to assume a basic knowledge of parameters and what they do inside a Composer button, and also a pretty good familiarity with Salesforce, especially with formulas and with creating custom fields. So that's sort of the background, but I will walk you through it, and I'll do my best to take it step by step. So the first topic about template selection. Let's first talk about why you should do it. So the benefits of automating template selection are really that it streamlines the solution overall, but it reduces user choices. So this can increase user adoption by making a new solution much easier to use, kind of foolproof, if you will. It can also expand the capabilities of the solution. So if you're able to have Composer pick different templates in different scenarios on the fly without you telling it to do so, just driven by logic, it sort of expands upon the multi-tool effect. And we'll see how that works in a bit here, where you can use a single solution to really create a number of different types of outputs, but just with the same one solution. So it's kind of a multi-tool in that sense. It can also enable background mode. Like I said, we'll dig into background mode in the second example here, but Composer needs to have a couple of things predefined before it can bypass an interface. And one of those things is templates. So if you're able to automate the selection of those templates, you can speed up the process. Last thing really is just that you can customize a solution to very specific business requirements. Totally geared towards your instance, your data, and whatever documents you're creating. So let's take a little field trip out of PowerPoint here, and we're going to go over to my development instance of Salesforce. And we're looking at a standard opportunity record right here. And I'll tell you what we're going to be working with here on this record so that we're a little bit oriented, and then we'll start actually running some of these solutions for a demo. So you can see pretty standard opportunity here, but I have this little section called Automate right down here. And the 5 fields that I want to really highlight to show off this template selection demo are these 4 checkboxes that say include template 1 all the way through 4. and then our template ID formula right over here, which right now is blank. So first, just to sort of break down these checkboxes, what they're geared to do is give the user the ability to select different templates on the fly. And I've kept it pretty generic for demo's sake, just template 1, 2, 3, 4. But these could represent any series of templates that you might want to string together. So it might be a contract with different terms tacked on the end, or a proposal with a piece of collateral about the proposed product included right there on the end of it. But basically, you can see that as I check these different boxes, the formula on the right side of my screen is responding to those selections and stringing together what look like record IDs right here. So let's see what these record IDs really are. If I open up a new tab here and see where one of those record IDs takes me, we're going to see that it's actually referencing a Conga template record right back here in the template manager. And this was just template 1. It's the first one on that list. And it's just a Word document right here. So for demo's sake, like I said, I have template 1 through 4, all is very simple Word documents here. So now that we're comfortable with these checkboxes, let's take a quick look at the back end of this formula to see how it's evaluating those and actually stringing together these record IDs based on the criteria. So back here in this other tab, we're going to take a look at this formula, and I'll zoom in a little bit so we can really take a good look. There's 3 main things I want you guys to know about this particular formula. First thing is just that each line really is just its own if statement, its own if formula, evaluating one of those checkboxes to see if it's true. If any of them are true, it provides the relevant template record ID for template 1, 2, 3, 4. And if not, it simply prints null, absolutely nothing. Second main thing to know is that it's being concatenated together, all these individual if formulas with these ampersands. And then the third thing you need to know is the placement of the commas within here. So a little hard to see on my screen, but right after this first template ID, you can see that there's a comma. So that's going to allow us to separate these different template record IDs as they get combined by our formula. So we can see on the output, if we have all 4 boxes checked, commas have been placed in there to actually separate each template ID. So this formula is all well and good when we see it on the page layout, but how is it actually used for Composer? I have a Composer button here on my opportunity called Get Smart. And that's what we're going to be using to demo these couple solutions today. But let's take a look at the parameters that are driving that button. So back here, you can see that there's a fair amount of formulas here, but we're going to break this down and really kind of take it step by step. The first one is fairly simple. It's just this first parameter right here, ampersand template ID equals. And we've just told it to reference that formula. So whatever formula results come up from us checking those boxes and that formula stringing together template IDs, those will simply get placed right here. And if we had 1 template, it would just be right there. If we had all 4, they'd be strung together, separated by commas. The other important thing to know about this first solution about using this formula is our ampersand AWD parameter that we see right here. That stands for Assemble Word Documents. So if you're using, in my case, 4 different Word templates that I might want to string together for a single consolidated output, I can use this AWD parameter and take all 4 but receive just a single word output once I merge. So those 2 parameters, let's go have a quick play with those and see how they work based on these different template selections. So first we'll go for the kitchen sink. We'll keep all 4 selected here, and then I'll show you a combination of 2 different ones so we can see how you could combine them. So we're going to see the standard Composer dialog once I launch this here, but we should see that there's 4 templates that have been predefined based on that formula. So we've got all 4 here in the same order that we saw indicated in the formula. And the output format is going to be same as templates, so that single word file output that I was mentioning before. So let's go ahead and merge. And what I should expect to see is a 4-page output. Each one of those templates is just 1 page, and it's real simple just for demo's sake. They just say template 1 or template 2 on them just so we know which one is which. So I'll pop open my downloads. And here we are on the output. Like I said, very simple, but there's template 1 on the first page. Second page was the second template. And we end up with one nice consolidated output. Great. So that's really all you need to know about the template ID formula in this particular context. But this is a really, really modular type of solution where, depending on the requirements, depending on what type of document you're creating, and what needs to be kind of variable about it, you could really create your own formula logic to drive template selection in a way that makes sense for your solution. Great. So let's move on to the second one. And we're going to go back to PowerPoint and talk about why we should use a background mode dashboard. So just for those of you who may not be super familiar with background mode, I'll break that down in simple terms. Really, it means that you get to bypass the Conga Composer user interface. And it allows for potentially a one-click solution. So one click of that button will generate your document and maybe email it or automatically download it, automatically send it out for e-signature, something like that. But either way, no matter what method of background mode you use, you're skipping the interface. So obviously that sounds good. It's automated and it reduces user choices. That's great. So the benefits of the background mode dashboard, of course, involve background mode in general. It simplifies that experience. It automates it to save time. But by using this dashboard that I'm going to show you, where you can control just specific settings about your solution, but still bypass your interface, you get selective control of your options and features that you want to implement. So it also expands the use of background mode in that sense, because background mode can be limiting. You're bypassing an interface, you've got to predefine a lot of things, and you may want to be able to adjust some settings on the fly. So this allows you to do that. You have sort of the best of both worlds. So let's take a look at how this background mode dashboard looks in Salesforce. I'm going to clean up my old little Composer window here. And you can see I have 4 other fields down here in this Automate section. So let's take a look at them. First one is our background mode option. So I sort of alluded to it just now that you could use background mode to do different file delivery, whether it's a download or an email. And I've set up a little pick list here that has 4 options for me to direct my file when I'm merging. Download, a fully automatic download, so a one-click download, an email, or the fully auto, so a one-click email. So let's start with the download here. And I'll change my background mode option to that. And we'll also say that we want to do a PDF output. I guess to pause real quick and sort of emphasize what we're doing here is that we're making selections that you normally wouldn't be able to have when you run background mode on its own. So we'll quickly say that yes, we do want a PDF output, and yes, we do want to attach the output file when we go ahead and merge this for local download. So we've made these 3 selections here, and once we decide to email, I'll explain what this field is all about. But using just these 3 fields here for the pick list for our option, the PDF output checkbox, and the ability to attach our output file, let's see what those fields are driving in terms of the logic in our backend button. So back to our Get Smart button here. Let's take a first look at this default PDF. We'll just go from top to bottom here in this button URL. So default PDF, as you can see, is just relying on an if statement to decide whether it's going to have a 1 as a value or a 0. And it's just looking at that very simple checkbox for PDF output. If it's true, it gets a value of 1. If not, value of 0. Very simple. Kind of just like an on-off switch. The second parameter is the actual background mode parameter. So ampersand DS7 right here. So this is hooked up to a case formula, as we can see right here. So those familiar with case formulas know it's just like an if on steroids. You can basically use multiple conditions, and it's great for looking at pick lists. So if we're referencing our background mode option pick list, as we see right here, if the value is download, we're going to provide the right value for our DS7 parameter, 3. And that's the number it needs, the value that DS7 needs to just do a not fully automatic download, but a background mode download that we'll see in just a sec. Same thing's true for all those other options. Full auto download, it'll get a value of 13. Email, it'll receive a value of 2. And fully auto email is 12. If nothing's selected, it provides a 0, so we're not running in background mode. The next 2 parameters that were driven by a checkbox that we just selected was that attach output file checkbox. And this one's sort of interesting because that single checkbox is actually driving 2 parameters back here in our button. The LG3 parameter and the LG4 parameter. And those 2 parameters are related to activity logging, but in order to attach an output file, like we kind of indicated with our little checkbox setting there, we need to drive both of them in order to make that happen. So the very first parameter, LG3, is telling us to actually attach the file. And if that checkbox is true, I'm providing it a value of 2. So LG3 equals 2 is going to tell Composer to attach my output file back to my opportunity record in the notes and attachments, but not to create any activity history when I do it, just attach the file. The second parameter for LG4, looking at the exact same checkbox, but if it's true, we provide a value of 1, if not a value of 0. And LG4 equals 1 is going to enable activity logging. So that kind of turns on the fact that we can attach the file in the first place. And LG3 equals 2 is actually going to go ahead and execute the file attachment itself. Awesome. The last parameter I want to show you real quick before we go run this thing is our OFN parameter down here at the very bottom. And I've set this up so that when we are using background mode, we can set up an output file name. That's what OFN stands for right here. We can set up an output file name for our output file to kind of add a little bit of, it's mostly just for fun, but some logic about how we actually went about delivering that. It's going to say your smart output was, and then whatever our background mode option, download, email, full auto email, and then just an ED on the end on today's date. So when we generate this file just now, I'll show you kind of the results of that OFN. All right, so back to our record here. We've got a background mode option of download and these two checkboxes selected, so let's give it a shot. First thing we see is a drastically different user interface, and this is the result of background mode. If we do this sort of halfway, just the download option on full auto download, we're prompted with a download button or close, and that's it. So like I said, there's no option to make user selections about PDF output or activity logging, but we've been able to do that based on our little background mode dashboard. So we'll download, and I should expect to see a single PDF in this case because we chose the PDF output option. Before I was stringing it together into a single Word doc, but now we've got a single PDF. And here's what I mean about the output file name. Smart output was downloaded on. So really just to kind of add a little bit of fun logic there. But it's the same thing that we did before when it was in Word form. It's templates 1 through 4. Just in PDF form and for a nicely automated experience with background mode. Nice. So the other part of that demo is to see how it attached the file back to our record. And if we look in notes and attachments down here, boom, right there at 8:17 a.m. Pacific time is our smart output. So we've got that as a copy log right here, and it was toggled just based on a quick little checkbox right here on the page layout. So let's take this to a little bit more exotic terms here. Let's maybe take out a couple templates so that we're just doing templates 1 and 4. And we see our template ID formula shrink down to just 2 there. And maybe this time we'll go ahead and go for a background mode email. So this time we'll choose the email option. And we also have another field here, the last field in my background mode dashboard called Conga email recipient. And what this is a custom lookup to a contact. This could be any contact that I want to be my email recipient. So I'll pick someone related to this particular account. We'll pick this dummy contact right here and save. So just like before, I want to show you what that parameter was really driving back in the button. So back here in our Get Smart button again, the last 2 parameters that we haven't covered yet, or the last couple of parameters, I guess, are these email to ID and ampersand CET ID parameters. So email to ID is looking directly at that lookup that we just defined. To look up to my particular contact, this is going to take the ID of that contact and provide it for my email to ID parameter, and that's my email recipient. The Conga email template ID, that's what CET ID stands for, is referencing a Conga email template record. So let's take a quick look at this record. And it's a very simple email template, but I just want to let you know that this is one of our Conga email templates that you can use some HTML capabilities for, and you can select it just like a document template too and define it right here. So really, the only thing that's new that we haven't done so far is just pass a contact ID via lookup right to our email to ID parameter. So with these 2 new settings defined, let's punch the button again and see what happens. Just like before, we don't see the normal user interface. But now Conga Composer is merging our document. It's going to be in PDF form just like before because that checkbox is still checked. But it's going to take it and put it on the attachment of an outbound email. We should also see that predefined email recipient be our email recipient on the actual resulting email. And then we should see that template be defined as well with just that quick little get smart text in there. So here we are. That's the recipient I defined. We've got our demo email template right here. And then down at the bottom, we've got our attachment, our PDF output, but we can see that the output file name changed a little bit just based on our background mode action there. It was emailed instead. And this is exactly the same, except it's just going to be template 1 and template 4 this time because we made those selections. Awesome. And then just like before, I think we kept activity logging still turned on for our attaching. So we would see yet another attachment here, but this is the one that's been emailed instead. Awesome. So the only other thing I'll mention about the background mode dashboard, and this is a little bit of shameless self-promotion, but there is a blog post on this exact topic where we really dig deep into it, and that's available on congamerge.com/blog if you want to check it out. If you do want to go about building anything like this for your own solutions, I'd recommend taking a quick peek at that. it's just a better, deeper reference than what we can ever cover in a couple minutes here on a webinar. All right, great. So let's go back to PowerPoint, and I think we're ready to discuss the next solution, the final one that we really have to demo here today. And it's those two DC-EC parameters that I discussed at the very beginning. So these are pretty simple in terms of wrapping your brain around because they're really just on-off switches for Conga Composer. And for Salesforce admins out there, this functions just like a validation rule for Composer. So the reasons why it's good, obviously, is that just like a Salesforce validation rule, it ensures correct business process execution. So that can, eliminate errors based on people filling in the right fields on a record before they merge something, send it to a customer, and also kind of clean up data just based on, the forced population of fields or just somehow making a record just right before Composer is allowed to do anything with it. So let's go take a look at our button, and let's go see how these parameters are working. Back here within that exact same custom button we're working with, there's these two parameters down here. I've chosen to use DC in this case. So DC is looking at an if statement here. And this if statement is representing, it's really looking at our opportunity stage to see what value it is. And if it's closed won, then it provides a value of 0, meaning that DC equals 0 and Conga is not disabled. But if it's anything other than closed won, it's provided a value of 1 and Conga is disabled, DC equals 1. So this other parameter kind of corresponds to DC, and it's DCL, stands for Disable Conga Label. And this is a custom message that you get to provide to your users when, if DC equals 1 and that actual switch gets tripped and they're not allowed to use Composer, this custom message will show so they have a little bit more context about what they need to fix about the record, what data to populate, what to change before they can sort of unlock it. So in this case, I've just said only winners get to use Composer, close the deal. So it needs to be closed won. So right now, we've obviously been using this button because the stage is in closed won, otherwise we'd be locked out. So I'm going to take some of these background mode options off, so we're just doing something more local. And we'll take PDF output off, and we'll say we don't want to attach anything. So using template 1 and 4 here, if we change the stage to anything except for closed won, literally negotiation review will do. And then we hit the button again, we should expect to be stopped in our tracks by that DC parameter. Excellent. So because it wasn't in a stage of closed won, we get this DCL, indicating what we need to do, in kind of loose terms for a demo. But basically, we weren't allowed to go forward with this merge process. We're stuck right here. So a little bit more about how you could go about using these parameters, these DC-EC parameters. They're just Boolean values. So for those of you who have any sort of programming background or anything, it's just begging for some sort of if or case logic in there. Feeding something a 1 or a 0, depending on logical criteria, is pretty easy to work with. So depending on your business process and definitely on the solution too, depending on if it's a customer-facing document that needs approval or very particular data on it before it goes out to be seen by an external stakeholder, using these DC parameters or EC parameters is an awesome way to enforce a business rule. So very synonymous to a Salesforce validation rule, just kind of the Conga Composer version. All right, so those are the 3 main examples here. So I do want to sort of wrap it up with a little bit of sort of breakdown about what these 3 examples were all about. They were very much in demo form. I mean, we were working with templates that just said 1, 2, 3, 4 on it, but I'm hoping that these 3 examples gave you some food for thought about how to apply them to your own scenarios. And of course, if you do have questions about how they can be applied to specific business use case, we'd love to help you out with it. But these solutions are always very tailored to someone's instance, their data, what they're doing with it. So they're very customized. So hopefully this generic explanation using kind of catch-all terms and templates and everything was able to give you some ideas about it. But yeah, just a note that all these solutions are always going to be very tailored to your business. Great. So at this point, I think we can open it up for some questions.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So one person asked, what if I want to consolidate templates other than Word documents?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we saw one example sort of besides just the Word documents in my demo where we put it to a single PDF. But another thing to note about that is that, say I was working with multiple template types, not just 4 Word templates, but like Word, Excel, and a PowerPoint template, I could string all 3 of those together, different types, into a single PDF if you want to. Or I could provide a zip file with multiple individual PDFs included there. So basically the Word template gets converted to a single PDF, Excel to PDF, PowerPoint to PDF, but all in one big zip file. So a couple options there in terms of PDF conversion. The other really important parameter I think to note, especially when you're working in PowerPoint, is sort of the PowerPoint version of AWD, which is what we saw to assemble those Word documents together. There's a parameter we have called APF, stands for Assemble PowerPoint Files, and you would use that to string together multiple PowerPoint templates into a single slide deck. So really synonymous to what we did with Word templates, but just for PowerPoint instead. And then I guess the only other thing to touch on would be Excel templates, where it doesn't really, I mean, Composer doesn't offer a feature to string together multiple Excel templates like that. And that's because you can include multiple worksheets inside a single Excel workbook. Composer can merge to about as many of those as you want to. So in most cases, it just makes sense to add more worksheets to the same workbook rather than to string together multiple workbooks.
Okay, great. And then what if I want to pick multiple templates on the fly? I think you kind of touched that a little bit, but and not using a formula logic.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So what I think we can do, because we do have a few minutes, is actually show a quick parameter here. Because this one is a real layup, and it's just a single parameter you can use to enable kind of dynamic template selection, not formula-driven, but however you want to order them and however you want to select multiple templates. So bear with me while we edit this button real quick. But this parameter we're going to add is called select templates equals 1. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is instead of using the template ID, well, I guess we'll keep our template ID to select those 4. But then we just want to go ahead and add our select templates parameter right down here at the bottom. Select templates equals 1. So we'll go ahead and save that. So just by adding that little switch, I'm going to go back to my opportunity, and we'll go ahead and predefine all 4 of them. And we're not going to run this in background mode. So if we hit Get Smart, we should expect to see a slightly different interface here for Composer. And it's our multiple template selection dialog. So what's nice about this is that I've actually used the formula to predefine templates, but I'm not locked into these choices. I can reorder them. I can go ahead and put 4 up at the top. I could even pick more that weren't driven by the formula logic. So here's a good example. Maybe I'm popping my invoice up here, but I have a couple of extra templates for terms and conditions, maybe a service level agreement to kind of tack on to the invoice. And then I press Next. So once I've selected now these 5 different templates, I've actually added one. Oh, my DC switch is still turned on, so this is a good one. I got locked out because it's not in closed one form. So I'll real quick run that again so you can see what it looks like when all the templates come together. But basically, it's just all 5 of those that I would have selected predefined on the next screen. Select templates equals 1 kind of adds this extra dialogue in between where you can order some templates and pick multiples. And then once we go next, and we're not locked out by our DC parameter, then we'll just see all 5 there in the same order. Great question.
Okay, awesome. And then finally, can you maybe just review again the difference between EC and DC? Do they do the same thing?
Yeah, great question too. EC and DC, they can do the same thing, but they're just provided different values with inverse logic. So EC equals 1 would enable Conga, whereas DC equals 1 would disable Conga. So you can definitely use either one. The logic is really the same, just inverse, depending on how you want to flip the switch. But I would just say be consistent. Just pick one and roll with that. You would never want to have DC and EC in the same button. I can't see why you would want to do that. So if you pick one, pick some good logic that will either enable or disable Conga, you should be all set.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Rob. I think that's all the questions we have for now.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for attending. Do you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. So we just wanted to point out some helpful Conga resources. If you visit our website and go to our support tab, you'll have access to our knowledge base. And from there, you can actually search for the term useful Conga resources. And you're going to find all these articles that are listed here. And so if you're looking to do, we have our Conga Quick Start tutorials that'll help you get started with Conga and just other solutions that you might be interested in building. We also have a Conga error message archive. So say when you're kind of building out some of these solutions Rob was just showing us, and you've come across a few error messages that you're not sure what they mean. This article is super helpful to kind of just look up an error message. Also, we do have a Conga webinar archive. So after today, if you have some more time and you're interested to see what other webinars we've had, you can look us up there as well. And then just, where you guys registered for this webinar, that's also where the webinar archive is located as well. We have a Conga template library, which is super helpful if you need some inspiration on building some templates. We have our Conga documentation, which is more detailed and in-depth information on further how to use our products. And then finally, we do have a Conga YouTube channel. So we encourage you to check out these links. They are helpful for you. And then, as we said earlier, this webinar is a part of our ongoing webinar series, so we encourage you to check out more of the webinars that are listed. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope you have a good day.